In today's video, we talk about what to do with the post-competition blues.
All by myself.
What's going on, guys? This is Paul Revelia, ProPhysique.com, coming at you on a Tuesday morning. And a different topic today. We're going to get into the psychological aspect of this mother because it's something that is very important. Something I often say is that psychology is more important than physiology, especially when it comes to the competitor. So let's talk a little bit about the psychology of the post-competition blues. Now, growing up playing sports, this is something I experienced early on in my life, but couldn't quite quantify it or explain what it was. You see, I played baseball in college, and in college it was a very structured thing. Like high school baseball, not very structured. After class, you go to practice. A couple days a week, you have a game. There's like 20 games in a season. It didn't feel like that big of a deal. Same thing with like Little League and Senior League and Summer Ball. It was a little bit less structured. But when I got to college, it was the first time I ever had a lot of structure. And the good thing about structure is that you're working, building towards something. So we literally had practice, we had study hall, we had goals to hit. You know, we wanted to win the conference, we wanted to get to the College World Series, all these things. So you're literally going to practice every day working on something. You know, you're working on conditioning, you're working on, how to throw a new pitch, whatever it may be. You guys don't care about baseball, but my point being is that you're really driven and motivated every single day. And then all of a sudden, one day, the last game comes and the season ends. And it seems okay. You high five your buddies. Good job this season. See you next season. And you wake up the next day and you go, the fuck do I do today? Yesterday I had all these things I had to do. Now I have nothing I have to do. And I would get into a funk every year. It was this post-competition blues. Now the good thing about college was shortly after the baseball season ended, I would leave college and go home for the summer, right? So I transitioned into kind of like a different part of life. I was back with my bros. We were in the gym. We were playing basketball. I might play a couple summer league baseball games, but I kind of transitioned out of that life. But as we get older, you don't do that as much anymore. You don't leave college when you're an adult and go and have summer, right? No. When competition ends for us now, you have all this buildup. You have all this structure, all these goals. You go to the contest. You either do two things. You kick ass or you get your ass kicked. But either way, the day after, the weeks following, there can be a little bit of the post-competition blues. So I want to talk a little bit about how to kind of work around that, because it's important to understand it, to deal with it, and not let it overtake you, because it can be a big setback if you let it, and if you don't really understand it, which I didn't do my first competition. The first time I decided to compete, I went to a bodybuilding show in 2007, and I said, I'm doing this show in 2008. And I reached out, I hired a coach, and I got to work. And I tell you, it was a great period of my life, because it was the first time in my life where I put bodybuilding competition as the forefront. I was literally playing in volleyball leagues, basketball leagues, softball leagues, and I had to cut it all out, which was hard at first because all my friends would laugh at me and say, you're doing a bodybuilding show? Don't you have to have muscle for that? Right? Yeah, haha, tall skinny guy jokes. But putting that aside, it taught me the value of focusing on your primary goal and the value in that. So there were so many good things that came out of it. Spending a year building, dieting, prepping, posing, tanning, training in the gym, telling all my friends about it, telling all my family about it, documenting on forums. This whole thing is something that I went through, documented it, and shared it with the world. And then when it was over, the night of the show, I go in, I was doing novice bodybuilding at an NPC show, which I was drug free, so I didn't have a ton of expectations, but my competitive drive was like, Go in there and give them hell. If they're going to beat you, they have to be better than you. Don't let them beat you because you didn't bring your best. Well, I brought my best at that time, and I actually won the novice class at the NPC Mid-Florida Muscle Classic. Shout out to Deke Warner. You're good peeps, my man. I saw you this weekend. And so we went out that night, my friends and I hadn't had a drink in probably 6 months. And we went out to downtown Orlando. We had our drinks. We celebrated. The next day, I think I went to Disney with some friends. That's right. You go to Disney World when you win and you live in Orlando. It's just what you do. We had a good weekend. That next Monday, I went to work, told everybody at work, hey, I had this great competition. Yeah, there's some pictures. Yeah, look what I did. Blah, blah, blah. And then it sank in. The nothing. There was nothing. I didn't know what to do. I no longer had a competition ahead of me. I no longer had a reason to do cardio. I no longer had a reason to go do posing. I no longer had a reason to go get in the tanning bed for 20 minutes a day. I no longer had a reason to fill all this time. And it was a bit of a void, and it was very reminiscent of my baseball days. So I want to talk to you guys about what I learned from that experience and how I've avoided it going forward. And then I also want to be honest, it's kind of happening to me as a coach. It's a little bit difficult after having these amazing weekends, going out to Vegas and having success, and going to the Tampa Pro and having success. And this weekend, there's no show. So it's I'm kind of dealing with this general malaise of having to push myself and stay on task, even though I'm not feeling it this week, right? But there's a difference, and we'll get to that. There's a difference in who I am and what I do, and we'll get to that. So what do you do post-competition to reduce the feeling of kind of depression or loss of motivation or loss of drive? Well, here's what I suggest, and it's worked very well for me now. Let's say you lose. I honestly think sometimes when you do bad, it can be better for you. Because when I do bad, I say, screw that noise. I am going to do better. And I get to work. And I examine what I did. I examine what I could do better. And I start looking at the changes I need to make. I start looking at the people that have success, figuring out why they're successful, what I need to do. And with bodybuilding, it's pretty simple. You need more muscle and you need to get leaner. So let's get to work. As we all know, the longer you bodybuild, the better you continue to get. Obviously, there's a point of diminishing returns, but I think by the time I'm 80, that's about when mine's gonna happen. I'm just gonna keep on getting better. You heard it here first. But seriously, when you lose, you kind of have that carrot in front of you hey man, you sucked a lot. Go get better, right? What happens when you win? So after I won my show, I had no intentions of ever competing in another bodybuilding show. It wasn't even something on the horizon for me. I probably went 2 to 3 weeks, which doesn't sound like a long time, but 2 to 3 weeks of kind of going to the gym a couple days a week. I didn't have that same drive to beat anybody. I didn't have that same motivation. I've always been a gym rat, so I would still go to the gym, but honestly, some days I would go in and just play basketball for 45 minutes. I would just go in and do fucking biceps and I just didn't have that drive. I didn't do any cardio. I stopped cardio completely, which was a big mistake. I put on body fat rather quickly after that competition. But mostly I just didn't pay attention to my nutrition. I started eating out a lot more, not really tracking my macros. And here's the adjustment I made the next time going forward. I immediately started looking for that next goal after those initial couple weeks were up and I was out drinking with my friends and I just felt kind of aimless. I thought I need a new direction. And I found a pro qualifier for natural bodybuilding that was about 18 months away, which was perfect, right? Boom, clicked. Here's my pictures to my coach. Started putting it on paper, on forums, started talking about it, started being about it. Hey, Paul, you did great at your show. What's next? Boom, I had an answer. Because for a while I didn't have an answer. That answer for me was, I want to be a natural pro bodybuilder. I attended that show. I watched everyone compete in that show. And it was in my mind what I had to do to win that pro card. I talked to my coach. I said, what do I need to do? He said, you're skinny, get bigger. I worked on getting bigger, right? So basically it was just about finding that next goal. Now, realizing this, doing some self-reflection and going, okay, I don't want that to happen again. What I did was fast forward a year and a half, get to my pro qualifier. It was the first show of the year for me, my second show ever, and it was the NGA Pro Universe and Amateur, right? So the way it was worked out, there was 4 weight classes. I was in the heavyweights because, again, tall, skinny guy. So I was at 6'3", 200 pounds. So obviously the tallest, one of the heaviest guys. There's not a lot of natural bodybuilders over 200 pounds, but obviously it's because I'm a basketball player trying to bodybuild. But that day there was a bodybuilder in my class named Shane Tarbox, who I was like, oh crap. I had just seen Shane win an overall bodybuilding title in an NPC show a couple weeks before at the show my wife had done. So I was like, man, I might not even win my class. So it comes down to the awards at the evening, and luckily, for whatever reason that day, I was better than Shane, ended up winning my class. Now, to earn your pro card, you have to win the overall. Well, I hadn't even paid attention to all the other bodybuilders, but everyone was telling me there's a guy named Steven Chip and he looks fantastic in the light heavies. And sure enough, when we're standing backstage for the overall, because as soon as you win your award, you walk off stage, they say, stay here, you're going back out, you're getting judged live. And I start looking at this dude and I'm like, crap, he's fantastic too. Here we go. So we start posing off. They're calling off the poses, they're moving us through them. And, and then they say, all right, we've made our decision. We stand there, and I'm just thinking, man, did I do enough? Lots of people were calling my number. I had tons of friends there. They said my number. They said number 63. I'll never forget it. It's burned in my brain. And I won. I won my class. I won the overall. I won the pro card. And here's a funny story. I was so dang excited, I left my trophy there. I grabbed the overall trophy, ran out to see my friends, and was gone. And it was like 2 or 3 days that I was like, hey man, what happened to that trophy? I left it there. My brain was just next level. Like, that was the most exciting thing. I had worked for a year and a half on one goal, accomplished it. Now, how did I avoid immediately not getting depressed, not getting the post-contest blues? And it worked very well. Here's what I did. The day of that show, there was some pros there. So the show was actually a pro amateur. There's a pro division and an amateur division. So when I was backstage pumping up, hanging out with the guys, getting ready for my class, I was looking over at the pros like, dear God, those guys are freaks. But it motivated me. I had that next goal. The next target was in sight. That's my next goal, to compete as a pro. So immediately after the contest, I got to work. I started looking at my pictures. I got back in the gym. I didn't stop cardio. I started adding calories in, but I was going to take 3 years off and come back to the pro stage, which I did. I competed again in 2012. But it was the best period for me ever, because I had learned for my first time through how to kind of avoid that complacency that can go along with post-competition blues. So whether you're not doing well, which I feel might be better for some people because that can fire and drive you very well, or you do very well, the most important aspect for post-competition blues or post-competition is to have a plan in place. Now, this comes down to any sport you do. I don't care if it's basketball, baseball, bodybuilding. When the season ends, when the competition's over, you hear about this really bad with Olympic athletes. I mean, they train for 4 years. They train for decades to have 10 seconds of glory. You can imagine what that contest come down is like, because you don't got another 4 years to the Olympics. I mean, I guess you've got world championships and stuff, but I digress. You hear mostly about this with Olympic athletes, but I'm sure even people from the CrossFit games, anybody that's training hard for this whole purpose and then it's done, there's going to be a period where there's a potential for some depression, some lack of motivation and drive. But I feel like when you set that next goal into motion, and I'm not saying you have to hit the ground running the day after, but I'm saying have a plan. Have a plan for what you want to eat. Have a plan for what your macros are going to be. Have a plan in place for how you're going to set that next goal, for how you're going to go from novice to open, open to pro, pro to pro top 5, to pro champion, to pro Now you're competing at the world championships, whatever it may be. You know, if it's bikini, it may be going from, you know, the novice class to winning an open, the open to getting nationally qualified to winning a pro card to competing in a pro show, to getting top 5 in a pro show, to competing at the Olympia, to winning the Olympia, right? Like, there's always more steps to go. You know, maybe the people that win the Olympia, like Phil Heath, what's he doing the day after the show? He's got to create something in his mind that says, you know what, someone else is trying to beat me, I got to get to work and beat myself for the next years to make sure no one catches. You know, I'm sure everyone has their own tactics. This is just my experience. This is what I do. This is what I've experienced. And with coaching, what I found this week is like, yeah, I had 2 really intense, crazy weeks with a lot going on. And then this weekend, there's not a lot going on. I have a friend visiting in town, you know, like there's some construction at my house, but I've already set the goals for what's next. So I have work to do. I have it lined up. I know what I'm going to be doing. And so I've been able to kind of circumvent it, but I did still feel myself like, why am I so complacent today? Well, it's because you put so much energy and heart and soul into these events and then they're over. So it's going to be normal that there's a little bit of that, but don't let it dominate your life and set you back for the future, right? Have a plan. That's going to be it for me today, guys. Hopefully I didn't bring you too far down with my post-contest, post-competition blues or depression or whatever you want to call it talk, but it's a reality, and I'm very much in tune with trying to pay attention to not only the physiology of my clients or everyone out there, but the psychology of it, because it's all intermingled. Our brains and our bodies are connected. This is just an old guy telling you what he's learned. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and if not, well, I'll come out with another video tomorrow and maybe you'll like that one. Until then, guys, I'll talk to you then. Bye.